Welcome in, so happy to see you. Today's Technical Tuesday, we are talking about composition and thumbnailing. These two things right, everything else is going to be a breeze, and if you don't, you're just putting lipstick on a pig and it's going to be miserable.
Okay, composition, thumbnails, what does it all mean? Oh man, it's the bread and butter, dude. It is what you need to be successful in art, in life. Well, mainly just art. So, what thumbnailing is, thumbnailing and composition is, well, thumbnailing is, in essence, it's this. It's the TLDR of your painting before you even see it. It's what gets people's attention, right? And you know you have a good thumbnail when you have a good composition. So what is composition? Composition is the arrangement of things on your canvas, is how much of what is placed where. So if you have something like this, this could technically be considered a composition. Technically anything could be considered a composition, but it's basically where you put things and why you put them there. And it makes things look good if done right and look lame if done wrong. It's the gut check of your piece. What makes your piece suck or be awesome. So naturally, there's a bunch of rules that accompany composition, and you're never really fully learn all of them. I mean, you know all of them, but then you start interweaving them and mixing them and seeing them in new lights the more you get. So composition, especially when it comes to landscapes and environment, as I said in another video, it is weighted so heavily. It's hugely important that you get composition right, because if you get your composition right, everything else just falls into place. All the fun stuff just happens. But if you don't get your composition right, you just end up putting lipstick on a pig for the rest of your piece, and you'll get like 5 hours into it and you'll be like, this looks like crap, but I worked so hard on it, so I guess I'll just kind of finish it. And you get into that. So composition, you really want to get down. So a couple things to talk about with composition. We're going to talk about mainly rule of thirds right here. And if you press Z and click on the bottom of your border, you'll get your crop bars, and your crop bars coincidentally just so happen to be your rule of thirds. And what this means is that you want to, as best you can, again, rules are meant to be broken, so as more of a guideline, place your areas of interest along these intersections right here. So if you have a horizon line, consider placing your horizon line near the top third of the plane or the bottom third of the plane. Or, you can get more extreme and get down here, or up here. But just, in that general area, if you have points of interest, consider placing them on these verticals right here and right here. Or, you can flip it. You can have a wall jutting out here to draw your attention down to here, right? So just as an example of that would be like I kind of did that earlier. So if you have, say, just a wall like this, right? And, you have your ground plane here. Like, so there's your wall. Then you have your horizon line here, right? And then you can place maybe your something over here. Ta-da! That looks kind of nice. Not bad. And you're pretty close. You get this sense of balance, right? So that's like the super vague, super brief rule of thirds. Things you keep in mind: just these four corners, and these verticals, and these horizontals here. Eyeball it, right? So that's number one thing to consider, rule of thirds. Another thing to consider that's huge, and this plays into perspective, but that's Z-space. And what Z-space is basically, it's how far your canvas goes back in space. It's like if you could reach your hand into the monitor, how far can it go in? And that's directly related to perspective. So like this. So if you have a dude all the way down here, and you have a dude right here, your brain sees this distance here. Now, you're going to have to be a little bit more creative to see, like, is this going down? Like, is he, like, in a tunnel? Like this? You see what those lines did? Now you're all of a sudden you're now looking down a corridor. Are we going inside this way? Or is he just at the top of a pyramid and we are at the bottom of the pyramid? Right? But even now you could still try to get the, like, these could be train tracks, and now, you know, and now your horizon line is what, over here. Right? So Z-space, which is basically you get that by playing with perspective. So if you get good perspective, you get good depth. Right? So that's honestly that's probably the biggest. Rule of thirds is great. You also have something called the golden ratio. It looks something like this. It's all mathy. We can talk about that later because that one is a little bit more fun, a little more complicated. So you have your rule of thirds here, which we didn't really do in this piece, but they're probably somewhere around there. Oh, is my horizon line close to the rule of thirds? Yeah, it's pretty close. So that's two things to consider right there, just off the top of your head. And then it's kind of like a puzzle piece of mixing them together. Rule of thirds and depth and all that. So the third one, though, helps you put those puzzle pieces together. Okay, so I know I want to put things here and here and there-ish, and I need to have, you know, a bunch of lines that show me where things are going. Like, it's okay. Well, something else that's kind of easier, something that helps is if you do 75, 20, and 5, and it is like percents of like how, think of these as sizes, almost like as pant sizes or shirt sizes, right? You have something that's a size 75, something that's a size 20, and then something that's a size 5. I've normally found that the size 5 is the thing for scale, because everything is about contrast. So I usually have my, and that's percent of your entire canvas here. So playing in all of those things together, right? Just what has become kind of a meme in environment art is this composition right here. You get your horizon line at the bottom third. You get a huge something right here. And then you have a smaller something over here. And then, actually, let's move him over a bit, just to try to get that balance. Try to get this weighted. Almost think if there's like a line down the center of your canvas, and you want to weight things on this side and this side so that it's even. So if you have a big fat ass thing over here, you probably want to have a medium thing and a small thing over here, right? So like you look at this, and it doesn't really look that good because, again, if this were a scale, right, this guy is a little bit too close to the middle. So I would want to move him over almost. Like, I want to move him over here, to be honest. Yeah, I think that looks better. There you go. There's that. That's just what this is, right? So then if you take that, because you have your 75, this is actually, I don't think this is quite 25 or 20. You can make this guy a little bit bigger. Yeah, do that. Maybe have a bigger something over here. Or if you want to get cheeky, you can kind of repeat this mountain range, which again, this is like a perspective thing. Because if you take, there's like a dotted line on top of all these mountains that are like drawing your eyes this way. Right? And then you can have a small little dude for scale. Right here, all the way at the bottom. You know, with the staff, because everybody needs their staff. That's what concept artists do, and he has a little cape or whatever. You stand here in your foreground, and then you have your winding path down into Z-space. Whatever. Ta-da! That right there is a sample composition that's technically not bad. It's like a solid B. You know, you throw some other things in here. Maybe this is like a rice field. You know. And this is your path or your stream. Maybe you'll have, you know, to keep the movement going, you'll have a trail of people here. You know, whatever. Right? And this is a good way just to get you thinking about thumbnailing, just thinking very briefly about perspective and thinking about weight and thinking about rule of thirds. So like rule of thirds, right? Here we have this guy's going to be a little off center of the third, right? Horizon line's kind of close to down here. We have another interesting guy over here. We have some depth with the mountains pointing down here. You know, you'll have some clouds or something up here on this top third. So again, like by the standards that we set, this hits some marks, but not all of them. And this is what a lot of compositions look like. Like they're close, but they're not exact. Like your horizon line isn't on the third. And again, rules are meant to be broken, so you can take some liberty to it. But when you look at this, I mean, even if you use your imagination and try to, you know, spice it up in your head with some sexy reflections and color dodge or whatever, it just looks kind of it just looks decent. It doesn't look amazing. But this is like the standard, like, do enough thumbnails and you'll start making variations of this a lot. And composition is a huge difference. It's a monster. It's a beast of topic to cover just because it's so important. So something to do as an exercise is, so this is like a meh. It's okay. It's not really that great. You could, I mean, and then this is just step one, right? So you have to have the knowledge to flesh this out with whatever tools you want, with 3Ds, with pictures, with painting, with whatever. But again, if you get this step right, everything else will come. But if this step sucks, then you won't really know where to go. And right now we're talking about just getting this to look sexy. We're not talking about, okay, I got a composition I like. How do I take it to the next step? I'm still figuring that out, man. Frick. Like, last week I tried to make a painting and it sucked so bad I ended up putting up on Gumroad for free just to show people what not to do. Because what I struggle with is I'm decent at finding comps that work. Like this one I'm not too happy about. But you know what, if I do like 4 or 5 or 6 more of these, I'll find something that, oh, I actually kind of like that. Like I see the idea for that. But you know, taking it to that next step is tough. But this is tougher, getting it to actually look the way that you want. So a good exercise to do, something to consider, something that I do all the time, is you go here to your rectangular marquee tool and just make a bunch of different scenes. Have a vertical one, have a square, have another vertical one, and these are a bunch of mini frames for you to practice thumbnailing, right? And now get your toothy brush and you're well on your way. Just go to town. So actually what you can do, I do this. You can do this, and this is a cheesy trick. Go to select, go to modify, go to contract. I do about 4 pixels, that's a good length. That's a good measurement. Get back here, select again, and now you get a little border. Easy. Ta-da! Now you have a bunch of different frames to work with. And then if you want to make sure you don't go out of them, just select here. And then now you can just go nuts and try to get a sexy composition to flesh out later. So starting on the big screen like this is intimidating enough. Like I start here and I get a bunch of thumbnails and then if something catches my eye, if something looks sexy enough from here, or heck, even from here that's small and unrefined, then I can bring it in here and start getting a little more specific. So just going through here. So this is vertical. And again, so you have to think where are your thirds in here. Your thirds are probably about, you know, here and here and here and here-ish. Okay, not bad. So like you know that in your head, right? So just playing with rule of thirds and, you know, your 75-25, right? Trying to work with that, and just at this point, just try not to think and just kind of go for it. And another thing that you want to try to keep in mind is you want to view the gray, your background color, as something, not as an absence of something. Because like right now, automatically you think of this as the black is mass and the gray is something else that's not mass. Like it's just not black. We don't know what it is, but it's not black, right? But if you do that, you start limiting yourself. And there's a design principle called negative space, And this is where toothy brushes come in handy, because negative space is everything that's not black. And you see these in optical illusions a lot. Like, there's one where it's like an old lady or a beautiful girl, or there's the one where it's the wine glass and two faces, and that is playing with negative space, because we normally see the thing that's black that has the most, like, I would say contrast, but you only know what contrast is because it's literally contrasting to something else. But it's playing with our assumption of what this is. So like right now you can see that, okay, well, it goes up and then it goes down and then it goes up again, and that's what you're looking at, instead of looking at this gray part right here and being like, oh, it goes down, it has a wide curve, and then something is cutting into it right here. Does that make sense? Like, so, and then if you want to, to play with that idea, erase out of your blacks and make that gray a character. And now that it makes you do a little mental gymnastics. Like, what is that? I don't know. If I do this here and we stick with it, then now this is kind of weird. It kind of looks like a cave almost. Like, if this is like, okay, like, what is that? I'm not sure. What if you put a path there? Because again, you also have to get light in here too. This is just basic high contrasty values, just black and gray. When you get a little like, you can come in here and you can start adding, after you say I like this, I can go through and I can select this black here, and then I can start adding, highlights like white to this, right? And just by using these three values, gray, like your midtone, your shadows, and your light, you can get some really, really sexy looking thumbnails. And that's something that I am challenged with, something that I am still growing in. Because I look at this and I get discouraged, and I'm like, well, that looks like a sperm. Like, that looks lame. This looks, I don't even know what this is. Maybe like a tower of like a smokestack or something, And I look at this and I just get discouraged, and I'm like, I hate this. I don't want to do this. I want to go to 3D. I want to go to photos because they have details there, and I'd rather just like fit them all together, And because of that, my compositions aren't nearly as good as they could be, and I become a slave to my photo references much more than I want to. Where it's like, sure, I'm capable of creating cool looking things, but only if I have a cool picture to base that off of. So in other words, I'm not very competent yet at making super sexy things for my imagination, and even just at the basic level of turning them into like what a lot of people would consider polished pieces. Again, somebody who is really good at this that I want to be like, I bet you can guess who he is. Aton is a boss at making these really sexy thumbnails, and they're so polished. His like thumbnails aren't even thumbnails anymore. They're like, he basically just, oh, I like this one. This one's really good. I'll just drive this one to completion and finish it. It's like any one of these, he can just finish it and take it the rest of the way with minimal effort, just because his foundation of his thumbnails is so good. Like, look at these. Like, every single one of these is juicy, is beautiful, and is amazing. And somebody asked him, like, because these are all on ArtStation, like, how long does it take you to do these? And he's like, it takes me about an hour per. And I'm like, shoot, I just kind of threw this together in like 10 seconds and expected to get some super sexy thumbnail, because I don't value this thumbnailing process enough. And I feel like a lot of artists, especially beginners, don't either, because it's hard and it's frustrating and you're only using 3 things, and it's like, but simplicity is good. Simplicity is good. Because even though we want to use pictures, we want to use 3D, you want to do other things like that, doing things like this is super important. Like, I've done a lot of these. Like, here's like all these things that I've done, and then I go through and I highlight them in red of, I like this one, don't like that one. I like this one, don't like that one. And then I try to push it through to completion. But even these, the ones that I'm showing you, like, even then, compared to Aton's, they're nothing. Like, yeah, they're contrasty, but they're still not like each of these probably took me like 10 seconds, 15 seconds, maybe 5 minutes. But Aton spends an hour on it, you know? And that's something that I have decided that is my goal right now. Like, I say that I'm, that I'm going to do a white canvas to finish piece every week, and I had such a catastrophic failure last week trying to do that, that it just scarred me and showed me that I cannot do that. There's a link to that to that video for free down here, because I was like, I can't charge patrons for this. I'm definitely not gonna put it up on YouTube, like frick, because it's just a cautionary tale of what happens if you don't have good thumbnails, if you don't have good composition. So I know that I just kind of glossed over, some of these rules, 75-25, and people change those ratios, or the rule of thirds I just kind of glossed over. I didn't even get into, the golden ratio or Fibonacci spiral. I didn't get into that. All of those things are their own lessons, and there's books and books and books about that. So all that to say for this one, just for this super quick Technical Tuesday, is that if you remember nothing else, remember this, and weighting your stuff. Think of a scale, right? Think of z-space, which is really just perspective. And then think of your rule of thirds. And then while you do that, while you think of those three things, you need to have an emphasis on thumbnailing. Like thumbnail details, really. And really just enhancing those. So you look at it and you're like, well, okay, that's nice, but I don't like, what? How do you do that? And I'm like, dude, I feel you. There's two ways, again, so something that I found, I talked about briefly for this is erasing out of blacks. I don't know what I'm doing, commas. You can erase out of your blacks or play with negative space, right? Which ends up tricking your mind to seeing things like in clouds, right? How I was talking about earlier that, if I do something like this, not just like, that's just lines, but how with since it's so toothy and texture, it's kind of like looking at clouds in the sky and like using your imagination and erasing out of it to see different things. So that's one technique you can do. Aton does that. A lot of people do that just because they have to iterate so much. So that's one technique that you can do to try to, do all of this. Another technique for thumbnailing is the more traditional one, and that's where you go through and you do lines for everything. You literally, it's like pen and paper, where you do this, and you have your horizon line here, and you have your dude here. Maybe this is your frame. And at this point, there's no discovery, really. I mean, maybe there's some, but it's a lot of, it's more traditional, it's more sketchy, and just aesthetically they look different. But this one is better if you like have a mission and you know what you're going for. But you can't erase out of your blacks. This one is much more like a doodle. And then this guy here is like clouds. And this guy. And I work better with clouds in the sky. Just because when I sit down to create a thumbnail, I don't know what the frick I'm going to draw. I just want it to look cool, right? And so I have to trick myself into seeing things I didn't look at before. Because like even now, you see how I kind of had this mountain coming down and something big up here? That's like my go-to every time. And I'm sure you'll have your go-to every time. And you're like, I'm drawing the same thing over and over. So if you have something in your head, by all means, use the super small brush. Use your, just start going, That's valid. But if you are more experimenting and trying to find different things, this gives you a really high contrast look over here. this gives you some freedom to surprise yourself. So again, like because again I feel you, because I'm like, hey, go and do this, and you're like, how? Like, I'm right there, dude. Because again, if you do this right, and you know, hang on, I keep selecting that. So you do this, right? But then you do something like this, and that's a solid color. Like, my biggest question that I wish I could just ask Aton, like, that's just black. What do you do? Like, I can probably put a highlight along this edge right here. But what's in here? What goes in here? I don't know. I don't know what goes in there. And you can take the line art style of trying to breathe something into existence, you know, by intentionally, taking your color gray and then going on top and trying to do something that way. Now it's turning more line arty, which works. But now this is also subconsciously turning into your, I mean, it's still not a highlight color. You can still go to white, and you can even make these have highlights here or whatever. So you can do that. Or, as best you can, get your eraser tool and then start see if you can see things by erasing out. So you say, what goes in the black? What is in that black? And I don't know. I don't know what's in the black. It's like looking at a cloud. What is in that giant black cloud? Like right now I kind of see a path. Going up this way. If I erase, what happens if I erase from down here? What happens if I erase at an angle? What is that? Okay, what if I make all my edges kind of like this? What does this look like now? Okay, what if I make them all like this? Is that grass? I don't know. Maybe that's a path right here, and then if I fill all this in. Okay, what if I just continue coming over here? But again, like, this is perspective. There's like a now. I'm trying to see if there's a perspective line in here. Like, you see that? That's like that Z space thing I was talking about. Why isn't it showing up, I wonder? I'm not pressing hard enough. So, like this. Which would mean now that like my perspective's in here. So then where's my horizon line? Okay, what if I put it down here? It doesn't work. What if I put it up here? Oh, now it's like a vista. Now there's like a person standing right here with his squad looking over Simba. Everything the light touches is your kingdom. Like all this. Still don't know what this is over here. But, But you see how it's more of like a discovery thing, the way that we always like imagine and hope painting to be if you start erasing that way, as opposed to over here, you're like, piss. I don't know, and you're stuck, as opposed to if you erase out, you can start seeing things. So thumbnailing and getting these, but again, this took me, I don't know, like 2 minutes. Aton spends an hour on his. And just refining that and getting to that point is something that I am aspiring to do. So this week I'm going to be spending a lot of time just trying to get classy thumbnails. And then I'll run into problems and be like, oh, I'm having a problem because I don't know. But then that'll give me a direction to go in. Because I've never really tried to polish a thumbnail. I haven't really. So that's what I'm gonna be doing. I would encourage you to do that as well. And just keep to this. So this one right here, 75. The weighting, kind of crappy. Rule of thirds, they're like bare. This guy is like right in the center of the frame, and these bros are like not like right off of it. So rule of thirds didn't really hit it, except for maybe this horizon line. If I were gonna polish this, I'd probably bring the horizon line up a little bit. move these guys down over to the bottom third, bottom right section, quadrant right over here. You know, over on this side. Move this guy up. Z-space perspective. This guy's helping me with that. This little whatever this is, a path or a bush or I don't know. Maybe this is a dragon. And he's like, but that wouldn't make any sense because now if this is a, I have no idea. Exactly. So again, all of these once you start checking through these, just these three for now. Because perspective is a whole other beast. And then lighting also helps with Z-space and perspective too. You know, with like reflections and stuff. So again, this is huge. But people, myself included, really want to go off and just make cool stuff, and we rush to photo bashing and we rush to 3D. But you're just putting lipstick on a pig if you don't have a really nice thumbnail. So that is my challenge to you. That is a super, 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 super brief, broad overview of thumbnailing and composition and high contrast. Each one of these things could be its own video, and I will do that, but I just wanted to get this out there today, this Technical Tuesday, because if you can get this done, you will be better than me, because I still don't. Like, an Aton is, I mean, everybody, there's other great thumbnails out there. Jamma does some good thumbnails too, but it's pretty important to do. So that's what I'm having to say today. Thanks so much for stopping by, and I will see you guys next time.